Evan Miller had never thought of the house next door as anything more than a quiet silhouette beyond his kitchen window. For months, it stood empty, windows dark, curtains still, a neutral shape that neither invited nor repelled attention. Then one Saturday morning, a moving truck arrived, and by nightfall, someone else's life was unfolding a few feet away from his own. That someone was Liam Parker. The first time Evan saw him, he was standing in the driveway, sleeves rolled up, laughing with the movers as they wrestled a couch through the narrow door. There was something naturally open about him, an easy confidence that made people want to talk to him. Evan noticed, against his better judgment, how light seemed to rest differently on Liam's face, how his laugh carried in the evening air. He told himself it was curiosity, nothing more. For weeks, their interaction stayed brief, waves across the fence, polite nods while collecting mail, a casual, "How's it going?" that never demanded an answer. Evan preferred it that way. Since Daniel had left 6 months ago, his world had shrunk into something small and manageable: work, coffee, sleep, repeat. Conversation felt like an invitation to vulnerability, and he wasn't ready to open that door again. Then one late evening, the city lost power. The entire street dimmed into blackness, and Evan found himself sitting in silence, the hum of his refrigerator gone, his phone screen the only light in the room. He went outside to check if the outage was widespread. That's when he saw Liam again, standing in his yard, holding a flashlight under his chin like some parody of a horror movie. "Guess the universe decided we needed a break from Wi-Fi," Liam called out, his voice warm even across the distance. Evan smiled despite himself. "Or maybe it's testing who can survive without it." Liam chuckled and crossed to the low fence dividing their yards. The glow from his flashlight caught the edges of his face, softening everything sharp. "You okay over there? I've got candles if you need them." "I'll be fine," Evan said. "Just strange being alone in the dark, that's all." "Then don't be." The answer came easily, without hesitation. "Come over. I was going to open a bottle of wine before the lights went out. No reason to waste it." Evan hesitated, his instinct pulling him backward. Liam was married, he had mentioned a wife once, though Evan had never seen her. Still, there was something in Liam's tone that didn't feel inappropriate. "Just neighborly. Just human." "Sure," Evan said finally. "Why not?" Inside Liam's house, the air smelled faintly of cedar and something citrusy, clean, grounded. Candles flickered across the kitchen counter, and the dimness made everything feel softer, quieter. Liam poured wine into mismatched glasses, apologizing for the lack of electricity and for the mess of unpacked boxes. "You just moved in." "It's supposed to look like this," Evan said. Liam smiled. "You say that, but you seem like the kind of guy who has his books alphabetized." Evan laughed, caught off guard by the accuracy. "Color-coded, actually." The conversation flowed more easily than he expected. They talked about work, Evan's graphic design projects, Liam's job in architecture, and about the neighborhood, the kind of harmless topics that made silence comfortable rather than awkward. Occasionally, though, something quieter slipped through, the way Liam's gaze lingered a second too long, the way his smile faltered when Evan mentioned living alone. "So," Liam said after a pause, "you've been here a while." "Almost 4 years. Must like the quiet." "Some days," Evan said. "Other days, it's just noise in disguise." Liam tilted his glass, studying the reflection of the candlelight. "Yeah. I get that." It wasn't what he said but how he said it, like he was answering a question Evan hadn't asked aloud. Something unspoken connected them in that moment, a shared recognition of loneliness they both pretended not to feel. Outside, rain began to fall softly, tapping the window in uneven rhythms. Liam looked toward it, then back at Evan. "I didn't think it would rain tonight." "Neither did I," Evan said, and somehow the words carried more weight than they should have. They talked until the candles burned low. The wine disappeared slowly, replaced by an easy rhythm of silence and half-smiles. Evan hadn't realized how much he missed the sound of another person breathing nearby, the ordinary intimacy of shared space. When the lights finally flickered back on, both of them blinked, momentarily startled by the sudden brightness. It felt like waking from a dream neither wanted to end. "Well," Liam said, standing. "Power's back. You survived." "Barely," Evan replied, half smiling. Thanks for the rescue. Anytime. Liam hesitated before adding, you should come for dinner sometime, proper dinner, with real light and everything. My wife's been meaning to meet you, but she's away visiting family this week. Evan nodded slowly, unsure why his chest tightened at the mention of her. Sure. Dinner sounds nice. Tomorrow night? Tomorrow's fine. Liam's grin softened into something almost shy. Good. I'll cook. 7. They exchanged goodnights at the door. As Evan stepped back into his own apartment, the air felt heavier, filled with the quiet hum of electricity returning. He leaned against the wall, staring at his reflection in the dark window. It had been months since someone had looked at him the way Liam just had, not with pity, not with familiarity, but with genuine curiosity. It stirred something he thought he buried, something dangerous in its quietness that he poured himself another glass of wine, though he barely drank it. His thoughts ran in circles, what the dinner meant, what it didn't, why he'd agreed so easily. Logic told him it was nothing, just friendly conversation. But part of him knew better. As he got ready for bed, the faint sound of music drifted through the shared wall, Liam's voice humming along to some slow tune. It was barely audible, yet it filled the room like a whisper meant only for him. Evan lay awake long after the music stopped, the promise of tomorrow settling uneasily in his chest. Something in the air had shifted, subtle but irreversible. The fence between their houses suddenly felt thinner, almost transparent, and he wondered, not without guilt, what crossing it might feel like. Outside, the rain continued to fall, gentle and persistent, erasing the boundaries between one house and the next. The rain began sometime after midnight, soft at first, like hesitant fingertips against the roof, then steadier, an even rhythm that filled the silence of the Cooper house. Evan woke to the sound, half dreaming, half aware of where he was. The guest room smelled faintly of cedar and rain-soaked air. He couldn't tell what had stirred him, only that sleep had left him completely. He sat up, glancing toward the window. A thin light from the porch filtered through the curtains. Daniel was there again, a lone figure sitting under the overhang, a dim halo from the porch lamp cutting across his shoulders. Something about his stillness drew Evan from the bed before he could think of a reason not to go. The stairs sighed under his steps. He hesitated at the door, then opened it quietly. Daniel looked up, unsurprised. Couldn't sleep either, he asked, voice subdued but steady. Guess the rain's too loud, Evan said. Daniel smiled faintly. It used to keep me awake too. Now I find it, honest. Rain doesn't pretend to be quiet. Evan sat down beside him, leaving a careful distance. The air smelled of wet leaves and coffee gone cold. For a while, neither spoke. The rain did the talking, filling the space between breaths. Daniel leaned back, exhaling. It's strange, isn't it? You can live somewhere for years and never really hear it. Then someone new shows up, and suddenly the silence feels different. Evan turned to him. Different how? Like it's asking you questions, Daniel said. Ones you stopped answering a long time ago. Evan studied the man's face, the quiet strength there, softened by fatigue. Ryan said you were the kind of person who never second-guesses himself. Daniel gave a small, almost amused sound. Ryan's kind. But he only sees what I let him. Most people do. The confession slipped out like a sigh, carrying weight he didn't seem to notice. Evan nodded, sensing the thread of something personal, something private, and unsure if he should pull it. Do you ever feel like that? Daniel asked suddenly. That people only see pieces of you, the parts that are easiest to explain. The question struck deeper than expected. Evan's instinct was to deflect, but his voice betrayed him. All the time, he said quietly. It's like you're walking through life on mute, and everyone else has the volume turned all the way up. Daniel looked at him then, really looked, eyes steady, searching, but not invasive. That's a rare kind of honesty, he said. Most people spend years pretending not to feel that way. I tried pretending, Evan admitted, his gaze fixed on the rain. Didn't make it go away. Pretending never does, Daniel murmured. It only teaches you how to hide better. The word settled over them like a soft weight. The porch light flickered again, casting shadows that shifted across Daniel's face. Evan noticed the subtle tremor of weariness in the man's hands, the kind that didn't come from age but from carrying too much for too long. "Does Ryan know you feel that way?" Evan asked. Daniel shook his head. He wouldn't understand. He's young, still chasing the idea that everything has a reason. "I stopped believing that a long time ago." Evan hesitated. "What made you stop?" Daniel was silent for a while. Then he said, "When you realize some of the choices you made weren't brave, they were just convenient. It's a quiet kind of truth, but it changes how you see yourself." The fire inside the house had gone out earlier, but a faint warmth lingered from the bricks behind them. Thunder rolled somewhere far off, low and patient. Evan found himself speaking without planning to. "I used to think life would make sense once I figured out who I was. But now it feels like the closer I get, the more lost I become." Daniel turned toward him, expression softening. "That confusion, don't run from it. It means you're still alive enough to care." The simplicity of it caught Evan off guard. He wanted to ask more, but the words dissolved before they formed. They sat in silence again, the kind that didn't feel empty. When Daniel finally spoke, his tone was quiet, almost vulnerable. "You know, Evan, sometimes the people we connect with aren't the ones we're supposed to. And that's what makes it real." Evan felt the words pulse in the air between them. He didn't move, but his heartbeat quickened. He wasn't sure if Daniel meant friendship, understanding, or something deeper, something neither of them had permission to name. The rain softened. The world seemed to shrink until it was just the two of them, sharing air and unspoken truths. Daniel stood, stretching lightly, as if to loosen the tension that had built invisibly between them. "You should get warm," he said. "There's some tea inside if you want it." Evan followed him in. The living room was dim, lit only by the fading glow from the fireplace's embers. Daniel poured 2 cups, the steam rising like breath. They sat on opposite chairs, the table between them a fragile boundary neither seemed eager to cross. Daniel's gaze drifted toward a framed photo on the mantel, Ryan as a child, holding a kite beside his mother. He smiled faintly, but it didn't reach his eyes. "He used to think I could fix anything," he said. "Now he barely asks for advice." "That's what growing up does," Evan replied. "You start learning what your parents can't fix." Daniel looked up. "And what about you? Who fixes you when you can't?" Evan gave a small laugh that wasn't quite laughter. "I write. Sometimes I walk until I forget why I'm sad." Daniel nodded slowly. "That's a kind of strength too." The clock ticked softly from the hallway. The air was warm now, but neither man seemed ready to move. There was something magnetic in the quiet, something both comforting and dangerous. Then Daniel's phone buzzed, a simple, ordinary sound that cracked the stillness. He glanced at it and exhaled. "Ryan says he's staying at Matt's place tonight." Evan's chest tightened, though he didn't know why. "Guess it's just us, then," he said lightly, trying to sound casual. Daniel met his gaze. "Guess so." The moment stretched. Neither looked away, but neither spoke. It was an understanding too subtle for words, too fragile for acknowledgement. At last, Daniel stood, his voice steady but lower than before. "It's late. You should rest, Evan." Evan nodded, though his feet felt heavier than they should have. He placed his cup down, hesitating for a moment that lingered a fraction too long. "Good night, Daniel." "Good night," Daniel replied, eyes following him until he disappeared up the stairs. In his room, Evan sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the rain fade into soft mist. He could still hear Daniel moving below, slow footsteps, the faint clink of a cup, then silence. It was an ordinary night by any measure, yet it felt altered somehow, as if something unseen had shifted just enough to change everything. Evan lay down but didn't close his eyes. The house, the rain, Daniel's words, they all lingered, circling quietly in his mind. And beneath it all was a question he couldn't name, only feel, beating softly in the space where fear and fascination met. Morning came softly, as though the world were afraid to make a sound. A pale wash of light crept through the narrow window, revealing the cabin's disarray, 2 mugs on the table, the half-burned candle, the blanket tangled on the couch. Ethan stirred first. His neck ached from sleeping upright, his body still heavy from the storm's long unrest. For a moment, he couldn't tell if the quiet was comforting or unbearable. Liam was awake too, sitting at the edge of the couch, elbows on his knees, staring at the dying embers in the fireplace. His expression was unreadable. The warmth between them, once suffocating, had turned into a thin, fragile stillness. "Morning," Ethan said quietly. Liam nodded, his voice low. "Looks like the storm's finally done." "Yeah." Ethan rubbed his eyes, glancing toward the window. The world outside was washed clean, trees dripping with silver light, the sky a pale, innocent blue. It didn't look like the same place that had trapped them last night that he stood, stretching, trying to find normalcy in movement. "We should head back before the road floods again." "Already packed," Liam said. He gestured toward his duffel by the door. His tone was calm, but something in it had changed, a practiced distance, maybe self-protection. Ethan hesitated. "You didn't have to rush." "I didn't sleep much." Neither of them had, but Ethan didn't say so. The silence that followed wasn't awkward, just final. The kind that settles after something has been broken, not shattered, but cracked too deeply to mend. They moved through the motions of leaving, folding the blanket, dousing the fire, checking that nothing was left behind. The ordinary acts felt weighted, deliberate. When Ethan brushed Liam's arm while reaching for his keys, both froze for a fraction of a second before pretending it hadn't happened. Outside, the ground was slick with mud, their boots sinking with each step. The air was cold but clean, smelling of pine and rain. Ethan loaded their bags into the truck, avoiding Liam's eyes. The drive started in silence. The only sounds were the tires rolling over wet gravel and the faint hum of the heater. Sunlight broke through the clouds in broken beams, streaking across the windshield. Ethan gripped the steering wheel too tightly. After several miles, Liam spoke. "You don't have to feel bad about what didn't happen." Ethan's jaw tightened. "You think that's what this is? Guilt?" Liam looked out the window. "No. I think it's confusion. You've been living in one version of yourself for so long, you forgot there could be another." Ethan didn't answer right away. He wanted to argue, to defend himself, to explain that last night was a mistake born from exhaustion and circumstance. But the words felt dishonest before he even formed them. "Finally," he said, "you make it sound simple." "It's not," Liam admitted. "But it's real." The road wound through miles of forest, sunlight flickering through branches like memories that refused to fade. Ethan's thoughts drifted, to Rachel, waiting at home, to the text messages he hadn't answered all weekend, to Liam's hand brushing his the night before. Every image carried the same weight, the unbearable closeness of something almost realized. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do now," Ethan said quietly. "You go home," Liam said. "You keep living your life. And maybe you stop pretending you're happy if you're not." Ethan's throat tightened. "That easy?" Liam smiled faintly. "Nothing about this is easy. But sometimes the hardest thing is admitting you want more." They reached the small junction where the forest road split into two, one toward the highway, one toward town. Liam reached for the door handle. "This is me," he said. Ethan blinked. "You're not coming back with me?" Liam shook his head. "I've got a train to catch. Another job. Another city." Ethan opened his mouth to protest, but the words caught behind his ribs. He wanted to say stay, or wait, or just not yet. But all he managed was, "You'll call." Liam's expression softened. "You know me. I don't stay still long enough to call." He opened the door, the wind rushing in. The scent of rain and pine filled the truck. "Liam," Ethan started, but stopped. There was nothing to fix, nothing to finish. Only the truth that would linger between them long after the road disappeared behind him. Liam gave a small nod, the kind that carried too much meaning. "Take care of yourself, Ethan." And then he was gone, walking down the muddy path, his figure shrinking into the brightness of morning. Ethan sat there, engine idling, eyes on the road ahead but seeing nothing. The seat beside him felt unbearably empty. For a long moment, he did nothing, just listened to the faint patter of leftover rain on the windshield. When he finally turned onto the highway, the sky had cleared completely. His phone buzzed in the cup holder, Rachel's name lighting up the screen. He hesitated, then answered. "Hey," she said, her voice warm. "Did you get caught in the storm?" "Yeah," Ethan replied. "But it's over now." "That's good," she said. "Drive safe. Dinner's waiting." He smiled faintly, though it didn't reach his eyes. "I will." When the call ended, silence filled the truck again. He glanced at the passenger seat, the faint crease where Liam had sat, the stray thread from the blanket clinging to the fabric. He reached for it, hesitated, then let his hand fall back. By the time he reached the edge of the city, the world had resumed its rhythm, cars moving, people crossing streets, life continuing as though nothing had happened. Yet inside, everything felt misaligned, as though a part of him had been left behind in that cabin, still staring into the fire, still hearing Liam's voice in the dark. At home, Rachel met him at the door, smiling, her arms around his shoulders. The smell of her perfume, the warmth of her touch, it should have felt familiar, grounding. Instead, it only reminded him of how long it had been since he'd really felt present. "You look tired," she said softly. "Rough weekend?" He forced a nod. "Just the storm." That night, after she'd fallen asleep beside him, Ethan lay awake, eyes tracing the ceiling in the dark. The house was quiet, but his mind wouldn't rest. Every sound, the ticking clock, the distant hum of traffic, felt like a reminder of what he'd left unsaid. He reached for his phone. A single message blinked on the screen. "Liam, take care of yourself, man." Ethan stared at it for a long time, thumb hovering over the reply box. A dozen words came to mind: apologies, gratitude, things he'd never dared to say. But he typed nothing. After a long pause, he deleted the message, the screen going dark. Outside, the city slept beneath a clear sky. Inside, Ethan turned toward Rachel, watching her breathe, steady and unaware. The storm had passed, but its echo still pulsed beneath his ribs, quiet, steady, endless. He closed his eyes, and in the darkness, he could almost feel the weight of the blanket again, the warmth of another life that could never be his. The night was still. The world was calm. But Ethan knew, with a clarity that felt both freeing and cruel, that part of him had never really come home.